Alrighty, yo, what is going on, everybody? It's your boy, Mr. DDG94 here, back with another reaction video. Today, we're going to react to what happened to black video game characters. This should be an interesting video. Without further ado, let's get right into it.
Am I the only one that's ever wondered what happened to all the black video games? Or, more specifically, why are there no more new video games that is heavily influenced by black culture? The only reason I even asked this is because in the early 2000s, even though there still wasn't a lot compared to like the overall game industry at that time, there was still clearly significantly more than there are today. Because when we think about today, we only got, I don't know, GTA 5, and Franklin is only 1/3 of the main characters in that game, with the other two characters being two different flavors of white. And most importantly, this game old as hell, coming out when I was in middle school, around like 2013. And outside of that, we have, you know, sport games that are just black coded because the sports themselves have majority black players, referring to basketball and football with games like 2K and Madden. And outside of those games, we do have some games that have black people in them, but these are definitely not black games. These are just games that have black representation, which, don't get me wrong, is still important. But in the 2000s, there were some classic black games that were released. Now, before I go any further, I need to explain what I even mean when I say black video games. What I'm talking about are games that are clearly influenced by parts of black culture, whether that's fashion, slang, music, or really just the overall style and energy of black culture. These games usually have soundtracks filled with black artists, fashion, black aesthetics, and a game art style to match. And also, just to be clear, a lot of these games that were made back then leaned heavily into certain stereotypes and tropes about black people that have existed in American media for a very long time. More specifically, a lot of these games continue to push the images of black people as mainly, you know, street, hood, aggressive, or tied to some kind of crime and violence. But that's not what I'm actually talking about when I'm referring to black video games. I call them black video games because of the way they center black identity and expression. These games still felt culturally recognizable in ways that most games didn't, and honestly still don't. So for a lot of people, these games hit different because it felt like a real inclusion and not just our faces being inserted into somebody else's world, which we don't really see that often in video games then and even today, which is part of why these games became so memorable and nostalgic to so many black people and even others. And let's not forget, these games were super fun. But for some reason, these games have completely disappeared. Before figuring out why that is, let's take a trip down memory lane and go through some of those classic black video games that came out. So, the first game I want to talk about is one of the oldest black video games I seen when I was researching for this video, and it's called Wu-Tang Shaolin Style. It's a fighting game based on the rap group Wu-Tang, and the game lets you play as members of that rap group, and the story in the game is about, you know, martial arts and kind of based around the similar themes of their music. And this game soundtrack included songs from the Wu-Tang and even beats from RZA, the producer of the group. Now, I never actually played the game, but it does look like it could have been fun, you know, back then to play, especially with like other people. But currently, it does just look like an old fighting game, so I'm not that interested in playing it, especially when there are better rap fighting games out, which leads me into one of the best fighting video games ever released. Def Jam for New York. And this is my favorite game from this era, and it's still to this day one of my favorite games of all time. This game was the second Def Jam game in the series, with Def Jam Vendetta releasing first in 2003. And I don't really have many opinions on this game because I never played it, but from looking at it online, it looks okay. But to me,
nah, this shit was fire. This Vendetta is fire. It's just sad that it always get pushed to the side. I get it though. Def Jam Fight for New York was fire, but Fight for New York was fire, but like Vendetta, if it wasn't for Vendetta and how innovative it was, we wouldn't have got Fighting for New York. So you gotta show love to Fight for Vendetta. That's just me personally. This set the bar. I've already told the story about my how we even got the game, bruh. The first time experiencing this game was amazing, bruh. That's all I'm gonna say.
Personally, it honestly looks like a weaker version than its sequel, but it still was successful, selling over 750,000 copies of the game just on PlayStation 2 alone, which generates to over 30 million in revenue. And the success of that game led them to making and releasing the classic Def Jam Fight for New York a year later in 2004. And I actually have a copy of this game, thanks to my wife for getting it for me when we were in college. And even though this game is 20 years old, it still costed her $60 to get for me a few years ago.
Damn.
Which is honestly a steal now, because when I look online, it seems like you can't even get the game for under $100, which just shows how special the game is. It's essentially a fighting game where the characters in the game are popular rappers and celebrities of the early 2000s, with people like Snoop Dogg, Fat Joe, Ice-T, Ludacris, and a lot more. This game had nearly 70 characters. And the story mode for this game was also dope, because you get to create your own character and you're basically fighting in the underworld of hip hop for your crew leader, D-Mob, who's going against Crow, which is Snoop Dogg. And throughout the story, you're just fighting against Crow's crew, earning money and skill points to improve your character's fighting ability and buy clothes and jewelry for your character. And one of my favorite parts of the game is that it has some crazy finishing moves called blazing.
Yeah, you gonna lose your teeth messing with me, you heard?
That's a weak ass blazing move.
You saw that, man? You saw that? It's a rap. It's a doogie.
And don't let me forget about one of the hardest intros to a video game I've ever seen. However, this game to me is just an all-around 10 out of 10. Down to the soundtrack, characters, story, and overall gameplay, I couldn't have asked for a better game. However, the company that made this game decided to ignore all those things that made the game great and release another addition to the Def Jam series called Def Jam Icon. And this game was for the 360 and the PS3. And for me personally, this game was...
Well, it wasn't the company per se. They just... What happened was the original creators of the game, they disbanded. EA broke them up. And then they sent this game over to the people who made Fight Night. And then the people who made Fight Night, they said, nah, all that wrestling shit is too unrealistic. Take the blazings out, take the wrestling out, add in karate and boxing and all this other bullshit. And yeah, just keep it like that. It's like, bro, it's not meant to be realistic. That's the point. It's rappers beating the shit out of each other. It's not meant to be realistic, bro. Just keep the formula going. Let's keep it popping. It's like playing NBA Street without the game breaker. It wouldn't make sense. It would just be NBA Live. I'm just saying.
It's not good at all. It was pretty trash to me. I ain't like it. Like, the new characters in the game was cool and the soundtrack was cool, but I ain't care for the gameplay one bit, especially the stupid ass kind of DJ mechanics they added to the game. But neither here nor there, we still got a classic game with Def Jam Fight for New York. Now, the next games I want to talk about is the street sport games, more specifically the NFL and NBA Street series. So there was only 3 NFL Street games, being NFL Street 1, 2, and 3. These games were cool because you got to play with real NFL players from that era, similar to Madden, but it wasn't trying to simulate real football in the same way Madden does. It was closer connected to a version of football. You can kind of remember like playing with your friends or your younger brother, cousins or whatever in the front or backyard, but in the most arcade-like way possible. I have so many memories playing with my little brother and cousins, laughing and arguing, playing these games. However, NFL Street was hella fun, but it wasn't my favorite of the street sport games because...
Nah, NFL Street is overrated. It's cool, but it lacks the depth that NBA Street has. NBA Street has way more depth to it. There's street legends, there's iconic courts to unlock. With NFL Street, you just beating a bunch of teams until you get to the final boss. It's like, bro, there's no street legends to unlock to add to your team. There's no NFL players you can add to your team along the way. It's like, bro, I say the first one and the second one was bare bones. Bare bones.
To this day, I still don't really play football games like that. but I do play a lot of basketball games, which I love the NBA Street Game series. And through the years, there have been a good amount of them. You got NBA Street Volume 1, 2, and 3, which I've only played one out of the three, which was Volume 1, and I even have a copy of this as well. But all three of the games are pretty similar in the core gameplay, but from...
No, they're not. No, they're not. Volume 2 is a whole different breed from Volume 1. And V3 is different from Volume 2. Home Court is different from all of them. But this is still the best. This is still the best. In my personal opinion, this is still the best basketball video game series to ever exist. And not just game, the series as a whole. From the first one to the last one. That's just me though.
Looking at it online, it seems like the general consensus is that Volume 2 was the best out of the three. But the premise of these games was that you played 3-on-3 basketball. Similar to the NFL Street Series, it was arcade style gaming, meaning it's not trying to replicate real basketball like in real life, which made the game fun in a different kind of way. And then you got other street ball basketball games like the NBA Baller Series with Stephon Marbury on the cover, which was similar to the NBA Street games as for gameplay.
I still gotta play Chosen One, bro. I gotta get me a new PS3. I gotta stop bullshitting. You know, I'm gonna give me a new PS3. I'm gonna get the PS3 emulator on here just to tell you all what I was doing beforehand.
Concept, but for this game it had, you know, more swag to it, I guess, as you can probably tell from the cover. And then you got my favorite street basketball game, which was NBA Street's Home Court with Melo on the cover. This game was so fun to me, which it threw me off when I was researching and finding out that this game apparently has mixed reviews, with a lot of people not liking the game. But for me as a kid,
man, either you like it or you don't. Me personally, I'm one of them few people that love this game. Like I said, I will say it's very bare bones, but I think if they would have dropped another NBA Street game on the 360 PlayStation 3 consoles, I'm pretty sure that would have blew this one out the water, because there would have been more to play with. Now that you have a good grasp of the technology, like I said, for me, like I said, it's bare bones, but still, it's better than NBA Live. It's better than any NBA Live from that era, outside of probably Live 10. Live 10 probably can give it a run for its money, but every NBA Live that came on the 360, ass. This was the best basketball game they got. The most fluid basketball game they got. The one with the most fluid animations. You're not glitching on the fucking rim and shit. No, you're not glitching and clipping on the fucking rim. No, when you grab that rim, the hand is on the rim and you could see the physics. Like, bro, this was, I don't know how EA didn't build their NBA Live franchise off of this game, because this was the better polished game. I feel, like I said, if they would have dropped the second one, I'm pretty sure they would have been 10 times better. Or they would have blew this one out the water. That's just me. I fuck with NBA Street Home Court. I don't care what anybody say. Niggas try to say, oh, you trying to be different, bro. Niggas always trying to be different. No, niggas trying to be performative and shit. No, I'm not trying to be performative. I've actually played these games. How you gonna tell me what I'm supposed to? Bro, I hate when people put that general consensus shit in your fucking ear, like what's the word? Projecting. I hate when y'all project onto people, bro. Don't project onto me. I'm not the nigga you project onto. You don't know what I like. I'm not you, nigga. It's only one me. Okay? It's only one me. I don't want to be like y'all. Who are you? You ain't shit to me, bruh. I know I'm the shit. You know what I'm saying? I'm him. I feel like I'm the shit. And I feel like my opinion matters more than yours. So don't tell me what I'm supposed to like, and don't tell me that I'm trying to be performing. No, I really enjoyed this game. I have a fucking whole fucking series on this channel that took me like damn near a whole year to finish. So don't tell me that I don't fuck with this game. I fuck with this game, bro. I really do. I still stand by the fact that this is probably one of the best games EA has put out since moving away from the PlayStation 2 era. And that says a lot.
Playing it, I just really enjoyed this game. It was because you can do cool dribble moves. You got to be able to do like some insane dunks, including double dunks, and even being able to jump off your teammates' back to do some different crazier dunks. And just like other basketball street games, you could have a game breaker, which allowed you to do even cooler versions of dribbling and dunking. So to me, all these games perfectly represented what I mean when I say these games had more cultural identity, and at the same time was just fun, because they weren't just regular sport games. These games took real sports and mixed them with the street ball culture, hip hop aesthetics, and the energy that you kind of get when playing like playground ball or like just basketball with your friends. They also had exaggerated personalities and music that felt directly connected to that era. And the same applies to some other classic black games I didn't really play as much growing up, or in some cases just never played at all. So you got 50 Cent Bulletproof, which was basically a full-on action game built around 50 Cent's image and persona at the height of his popularity. The game leaned heavily into the street like rap image of that era.
This game was cool. I ain't gonna sit up here and say it was bad. It was cool. 50 Cent Bulletproof was cool. First time playing it, y'all can watch that series on this channel. I played through it. It was cool. It was cool. I wish there was a little bit more to it, but it was cool.
According to the reviews, fans loved the soundtrack, the atmosphere, and just how raw and edgy the game was as a whole. And then you got Midnight Club 3.
Yeah, that's what's up. Yeah. After playing LA, I can honestly say I think LA is 10 times better than Dub Edition, but that doesn't mean that Dub Edition is ass. I'm never going to say that it's ass. No. LA just has... Rockstar actually got in a bag with LA, but Dub Edition will always be a classic in my eyes, bro. Because I played the shit out this game,
which wasn't necessarily a black game directly, but it was deeply connected to hip hop and car culture at that time. The customization, the music, the city nightlife aesthetic, the Dub magazine partnership, it really captured the 2000s car culture energy. And then you got a game called True Crime New York City, which is a game I honestly had never heard of before researching for this video, but after looking into it, I can see the appeal of this game. The game was heavily inspired by New York street culture and followed an ex-gang member turned into a police officer trying to survive corruption, gangs, and street politics in New
York. Yeah, when it comes to true crimes, whether it's streets of LA or the New York one, they both got they both got their little, you know, they got their moments, you know.
New York. According to the reviews, fans loved how authentic the city felt for the time, along with the soundtrack, atmosphere, and gritty tone that made it stand out from the other crime games of that era. And lastly, I can't talk about black video games without mentioning one of the highest sold games in the PS2 and Xbox era, and that game is Grand Theft Auto San Andreas. Now, I never owned a copy of this game, probably because it was mature rated and it came out in the early 2000s and I was really young at that time. But I have played a little when I was younger at my cousin's house, but not as much as I've played the other games on this list. But even without me playing the game as much, I know how much people love this game because I constantly heard people talk about this game and use clips from the game in videos.
Oh shit, here we go again.
Yeah.
Which game was the greatest and why?
You even gotta ask? San Andreas, baby, no doubt. My game had it all. 3 cities, countryside, deserts, mountains, the whole state. We introduced so much. You could ride bicycles, fly jets, skydive with parachutes, even swim for God's sake. Yeah, I'm gonna throw shade. My 2 friends here couldn't even swim in their games. I was out there diving and exploring underwater, while these guys would sink like a rock if they touched a puddle. Plus, the soundtrack. All those early 90s hip-hop, rock, R&B tracks, straight fire. Not to mention the story, I took down corrupt cops, helped unite the hood, even did a heist in Las Venturas. We had gang wars, turf control, car customization, you name it. San Andreas is basically the GOAT of GTA. I mean, I might be biased, but ask anybody. My game's the one people still meme about. Oh shit, here we go again. That's me, iconic.
And as I mentioned, this game was one of the highest selling games for that time, selling over 27.5 million copies.
Damn.
Which is honestly just crazy because at 27.5 million copies sold, even using like a rough $50 game price, that equals over $1 billion in retail sales. However, the real average price was probably a little lower because of, discounts and later re-release, but we're still talking about a game that likely generated
like greatest hits editions, which would come out at like $20. The greatest hits edition or the platinum hits edition if you had an Xbox.
hundreds of millions to over $1 billion. Now, all these games weren't perfect. Some were a lot better than others. However, these games are still special nonetheless for all the reasons I went over earlier. But I never understood why they stopped making black video games in general. But to understand this, let's take a look at the companies that were making these games and the time period that they were making them in. So from the late 90s to early 2000, hip-hop exploded in popularity and was highly commercially successful, while also having massive cultural capital within the mainstream, driving sales and pushing black culture all across the world. Meaning everyone was buying and consuming hip-hop music, of course, but people were also consuming hip-hop culture in different mediums. Companies such as BET and MTV and major record labels like Def Jam, Death Row, Bad Boys, and others figured out how to commercialize the visual language of hip-hop, meaning they figured out how to turn the culture of hip-hop outside of the music into products that can be consumed by fans. You had shows like MTV Cribs popularizing a hyper-consumer lifestyle of the hip-hop artists centered on cars, jewelry, and lavish houses, which we know now was all fake, but at the time, the public believed it was real. It's kind of similar to the same way today people fake their lifestyle on social media, and a lot of us believe it. You also had hip-hop clothing brands such as Rocawear, G-Unit, FUBU, and Sean John, which commercialized black apparel to the mainstream. With all these combined, with the addition of the music and the image and likeness of all these new artists with their different styles, hip-hop had the entertainment industry and pop culture in a chokehold. And at the same time, video games were rapidly growing in popularity. From the arcade to the home console, gaming was going through one of its biggest transformations. In the 80s and early 90s, a lot of gaming culture lived in arcades, where people gathered around machines, spent quarters, competed with friends, and discovered new games in public spaces. But as home consoles became more popular, cheaper, and easier to access, the center of gaming slowly moved into people's living rooms. By the time the PlayStation 2, Xbox, and GameCube era arrived, video games were no longer just something kids played at the arcade or some kind of simple home system. They were becoming a massive entertainment industry. Kids, teenagers, adults were now buying games directly from publishers at local game stores, and companies realized there were real money in building games around specific audiences, cultures, celebrities, music, sports, and lifestyle. This created the perfect opening for a wave of new games. And so at the same time, hip-hop music and hip-hop culture, which is a part of black culture, was being consumed at an all-time high, you had a rise of the video game industry. So it only made sense that the gaming companies would want to get in on the action of releasing games on the back of hip-hop success and commercialization. And when it comes to video game companies that release these black video games, there is one main company that seemed to have its hand in all those classic video games I previously just went over. And that company is Electronic Arts, better known as EA. So EA wasn't the only company that released black games, but it's the one I want to focus on, because the other companies that did release those games didn't stay in the black culture niche that long before pivoting to other types of games. The only other major company that still has their hand in games with black culture and identity is Rockstar, with their successful GTA series, with them releasing another installment at the end of the year, and based on the trailer for that game, they definitely still included parts of black culture. However, EA released the most black games during the early 2000s, with most of the games I just went over being released by them. So let's take a closer look at EA to truly understand the rise and fall of black video games. And EA at this time was already one of the biggest companies in the entire video game industry. This wasn't some small company taking a random chance on a trend. By the late 90s and early 2000s, EA had already built themselves into a powerhouse in the gaming world on the back of sport games, licensed franchises, and yearly releases. They had Madden, FIFA, NBA Live, NHL, Need for Speed, and eventually The Sims, which became one of the largest PC games ever. So EA already understood something very important before a lot of other companies did. Video games weren't just about gameplay anymore. They were basically becoming brands. EA was already the king of turning the real world culture into video games. Madden turned the NFL into a yearly game event. FIFA did the same for soccer. Need for Speed tapped into the car culture. So when hip hop was becoming more mainstream, EA was already in the perfect position to capitalize on it. They already had the money, they already had the marketing machine, they already had relationships with athletes, musicians, leagues, and retailers, and most importantly, they had already proven that if you could attach a game to something people cared about in real life, you could turn into a major franchise. So when EA started looking at youth culture in the late 90s and early 2000s, they seen a generation of video game players who wanted a game that felt stylish, loud, rebellious, competitive, and connect to the culture that they were living in or that they were seeing on TV. Whether it was car culture, and street ball culture, extreme sport culture, or hip hop culture. And that is where EA Big comes into play.
EA Sports.
So EA Big was like a special branding identity for EA. Basically a marketing play that helps separate consumers from preconceived ideas of the type of games EA usually releases. Because at this time, and even still today, EA is big in the sports realism bag, making simulation games as close as they could to how sports are in real life. But EA Big was not that at all. These games were louder, flashier, and more arcade-like. And with this model, EA Big made some classic video games like NBA Street, NFL Street, Def Jam, SSX, and others. But only 8 years in, EA Big officially ended in 2008, causing a huge hit to these types of games, which included the world of black video games. Because as I mentioned, they were the main ones making these games because the rest of the industry was more focused on either realistic sports simulations, which EA was already in, fantasy games, military shooters, or big franchise titles. But this is where things didn't really make sense to me, because if EA Big ending was one of the reasons these games started to disappear, it still doesn't fully answer the bigger question of what actually happened to black video games. Because like I said earlier, a lot of these games existed because hip hop and black culture was commercially powerful at this time. It was everywhere. It was in music, movies, fashion, sports, and commercials. So on paper, it made sense why publishers wanted to make games tapping into what was already popular. But black culture didn't become less popular. If anything, it got bigger. Hip hop kept growing until it became one of the biggest genres of music in the world.
It's not the fact that black culture got bigger, it's the fact that black culture wasn't profitable. What happened was these investors started getting involved and they started saying, that doesn't make a lot of money for us. We're actually taking a loss. Why don't we make something that is for a broader audience? Why don't we focus on that Madden? Why don't we focus on that FIFA? Why don't we focus on games that are going to broaden our dollars and maximize our profits instead of just focusing on a niche, what's the word I'm looking for? A niche audience that really, they don't really even have the financial stability to even buy our games. So why are we catering towards them when we can go to the broader horizon, where we can get the mommy and daddy that live in the suburbs that actually have good money and good credit that will buy their kids anything? Why don't we just focus on them instead? That's really what happened. It was all about dollars. The truth of the matter is, as great as the Def Jam and NFL, NBA Street franchises were, they weren't making as much money as Madden and FIFA and NHL, or NBA Live for that matter. They weren't making dollars. If it don't make dollars, it don't make sense. That's just how EA operates.
Streetwear became luxury fashion. Sneaker culture became mainstream. TikTok dances, internet slang, memes, fashion trends, and even the way people talk online are still constantly being pulled from Black culture. So if Black culture is still one of the biggest drivers of entertainment, fashion, music, and internet culture, then why did the games disappear? Why are there no major video games today built around the same energy or even just newer versions? Why are publishers not even trying to serve that audience the same way they did in the early 2000s? And this answer is a little complicated because now we're getting into the business of gaming. So in 2006, the gaming industry changed. This was the era of the next generation consoles. Gamers now moved from the PS2 and the Xbox to the next gen consoles, being the PS3 and the Xbox 360. And the most important thing about this transition was that this is when video games started costing more money to make. And during this time, gamers' expectations got higher. Graphics had to be better, and even online features started becoming more important. And this is when the industry shifted harder into what people now call AAA games, which are video games made by major studios with huge development teams, big budgets, expensive marketing campaigns, and just high sales expectations. Basically, a AAA game is the gaming industry's version of a blockbuster movie. Games like Call of Duty, Assassin's Creed, Halo, Madden, FIFA, and NBA 2K became the type of games publishers wanted to make because they already proven themselves. They already proved that they could make a lot of money. And that's when everything changed, because when games were cheaper to make, publishers could afford to, take more risks. They could make mid-tier games like NBA Street, Def Jam, or NFL Street and not need it to be the biggest game in the world to justify its existence. Because during the PlayStation 2 and Xbox era, a game could be fully developed on a budget of $1 million to $5 million, allowing publishers to turn a profit on just moderate sales. The transition to the higher definition game era of the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360 exponentially increased development times and labors for these types of games, increasing AAA's budget to $50 million and eventually $100 million. This huge jump in cost eliminated games companies' desire to even experiment with projects that could possibly flop because the audience wasn't as proven as major titles, making them highly risky in the eyes of gaming companies. And even though a lot of the Black games I went over was, super fun, dope games and classic in the eyes of some, however, when these games were released, they didn't necessarily perform that great in terms of sales compared to other games. The only game that performed extremely well was GTA San Andreas, selling over 27 million copies. But if you take the sales of the other games I talked about, and that's all of the Def Jam series, 1, 2, and 3, all the NBA Street series, NFL Street series, and all the other games, you're looking at roughly over 20 million copies sold in total, just all those games combined. And don't get me wrong, that ain't nothing to sneeze at. These games clearly had an audience. People bought them, people loved them, and decades later, people, and even me, are still talking about them. But when you compare those numbers to a game like Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, which came out in 2009 and sold over 22 million copies by itself, you start to see the gap, because once gaming moved into the PS3 and Xbox 360 era, publishers became way more focused on games that could reach those blockbuster level of success and beyond. Which is part of the reason there are little to no Black video games today. Because once the industry believed that these Black video games had low sales ceilings, they stopped investing in them. Not because the audience wasn't there, but because they believed the audience wasn't big enough to where AAA games were going. And on top of that, I believe Black culture itself became so mainstream that companies didn't feel like they needed to build an entire game around it anymore to capitalize off of it. Instead, they could just take, the music, the fashion, the slang, the dances, the athletes, and the aesthetics and sprinkle it into bigger, safer games like 2K, Madden, Fortnite, and Call of Duty. So Black video games didn't completely disappear. The industry just absorbed the culture and made it an accessory in other games. Which poses a question. Should gaming companies or studios invest in creating Black video games today, even though the past ones didn't sell well by these, new, extreme success metrics? To me, the question is easy. Of course they should. And I believe a well-executed game that centers Black identity and expression with true cultural nuance, and most importantly, a fun game will sell extremely well today. And the reason I believe this is because we now have some of the biggest streamers who will play these games all the time. We also have YouTubers, podcasters, and online communities that can make a game popular overnight. And when it comes to sales and making money, we've already seen proof that Black culture sells in gaming. with NBA 2K making tons of money every year off Black expression identity, making approximately $1 billion to $1.5 billion in annual gross revenue every year from their games. Fortnite is another example. The game makes billions of dollars every year from selling skins, dances, emotes, battle passes, V-Bucks, and major collaborations. And no, Fortnite is not built entirely around Black culture, but since the games became popular, a lot of the things it's sold, whether it's the dances, the skins, or just the collaborations, are directly connected to Black culture. And I believe none of those things are random. Epic Games, the creator of Fortnite, add those things because they know it gets attention, it keeps people playing, and makes people spend money. GTA has also shown multiple times that Black identity can be a part of some of the biggest games in the world, helping Rockstar make billions from those games as well. So the question isn't really whether Black culture can sell in video games or not. The real question is what would happen if somebody actually tried again today, and not with a lazy cash grab, not with a game that just throws rappers, slang, and streetwear on top of a shitty game, but a real game, a fun game, a well-written game, a game with style, personality, creativity, and actual cultural understanding. Shit, even use new stories or even use history to make an entirely new game concept, because there's evergreen content that can be turned into a premise for a video game that I believe could be dope. And the audience is already there. The nostalgia is there. The online support is there. And if a game is good enough, I believe the game will be a huge success for real. So I believe Black video games aren't gone forever. We're just waiting on the right person or game studio or publisher brave enough to bring them back. Because I do believe there is a market and even marketing infrastructure when it comes to creators on social media waiting to blow up a new dope Black video game, but it has to be a good game. But let me know your thoughts on this topic in the comments. Also tell me any stories you may have playing some of the games I've mentioned, or if I missed any game or just anything in general, or if you have any thoughts that can add to the conversation. Let's talk about it in the comments, and I'll see you in the next video.
Alrighty, man. That's just gonna about do it for this one, most definitely, man. Like I said, man, it's really just if it don't make dollars, it don't make sense type of ordeal. It's not the fact that they can't make them or they just refuse to make them. It's just the money got to be there, you know. And then on top of that, you got to deal with it. Imagine somebody making a gangbanger type of video game, something on the cusp of a San Andreas and Saints Row, but like it's its own story, it's its own identity. It would just get labeled as a GTA clone, and that would be it. Like, oh, we got another GTA clone, instead of giving it a chance and letting it build its own identity. Because, you know, we got a bunch of Grand Theft Auto dick riders out here in these streets these days. That's why I said, man, this dick hopping gotta stop, bro. All this dick sucking and dick hopping gotta stop, bro. We gotta go back to being consumers, man, and letting and try to get an experience out of the product before we just go ahead and say, oh, this is a clone of this. Oh, this is just that. Oh, they just copying this. It's like, no, give it a chance. Jesus Christ.
Dick hopping, dick hopping, dick hopping, dick. Pussy niggas, funky bitches hopping, dick. Pussy niggas, funky bitches hopping, dick. They hopping, dick. They hopping, dick. They hopping, dick. They hopping, dick. Pussy niggas, funky bitches hopping, dick. Pussy niggas, funky bitches hopping, dick.
I'm just saying though. But anyway, so that's just gonna about do it for this one. I will see you on the next video. Till then, deuces.